Hello and welcome to the Skillwork Forum. This is a reminder this podcast exists to help leaders and companies who are looking for solutions to overcome the skilled labor shortage in America. As a reminder, I'm Tim and I'm joined here with my partner Brett from Skillwork. Today we're going to be talking about a concept many of you are familiar with, many of your organizations I'm sure have them. It's core values, the idea of what your guiding principles are. And at the end, we're gonna challenge you to ask yourself the question: are your core values really core to who you are? Do they remain unchanging? Are they your guiding principles for how you carry out not only your business but your personal life? So Brett, to kick things off, talking about this concept of core values, I think it always helps to make sure we're talking about the same thing and that everybody's on the same sheet of music. So when we look at core values, for us, it's really these guiding principles or behaviors really that measure or judge what we think is really important in life and in our business and how we carry ourselves. So, those apply to individuals as well as organizations, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a challenge, as a leader of an organization, which a lot of us are, it's hard to completely separate your individual values from your organizational values. It's if you got a totally set of different values but your company, you're trying to build it on a different one, I think that's tough. But for us, Tim, as you know, individually, we associate probably a lot of our faith with our values. And so to me, a lot of them are interchangeable to some degree. I think as far as the organization goes, our company, Skillwork, I believe with a high level of confidence that Tim and I would tell you that everybody in our organization could tell you our three core values, and those are to honor God in everything we do, to bring value and respect back to the trades, and that we measure our success by the number of people we help. And so for us, those are core. And I think, I've been in an organization in the past where they have values written on a wall. Unless you're reading off the wall, probably couldn't tell you what they are. I think our encouragement, not challenge, I think our encouragement would be to really, really pick values that represent who you are. So your thought, Tim?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's true. And, individually, everybody has core values and principles. Whether they've taken the time to articulate them or not, it's really about how you make decisions in life. And we kind of synthesize those by talking about somebody's character. And I think that is a good way to capture the idea individually. What's that person's character really is fundamental to who they are and how they make decisions. Organizationally, as you just mentioned, we started out this organization early on, landing on what our core values are. And Brett, you mentioned the three that we kind of summarize them, but underpinning them, there's 12 principles that we use that are all based on what we call our North Star, and that's our faith. But you're right, everybody in our organization knows those three. So those are our abiding principles. It's our company culture, and it's something that we enforced, and we'll talk at the end about how you might embrace some of those for your organization. So the question today then is, are your core values really core to who you are? And do they stand the test of time? And here we are in the midst of this, unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, putting an immense amount of pressure on an organization, certainly trials for a lot of companies, small businesses, for sure, feeling it more than others. So are your core values sustaining and maintaining through this test? Brad, one of the things you and I talk about, and we've heard it, and many of other people probably heard it in various different ways, is this idea that difficult times reveal your character or your values more than building them. And, you could argue that character gets built during these times as well. But I think the idea that it really reveals your core values, both as an individual, am I standing on my personal convictions, and from our perspective as a business, are we really holding fast to those core values in the midst of this storm?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think you're right. It's there's a quote. I'm not exactly sure who said it. I've found myself repeating it multiple times during this pandemic, and it kind of goes with what you said about these difficult times really more reveal your character than shape your character. And that is the quote that, our character during the drought, I would interchange the word pandemic in this case, but our character during the pandemic is what people will remember in the harvest. And I've heard people say that you don't really know what you stand for, you don't know how strong your faith is until you go through a challenge, and at that point you've got to make the tough decisions that, no, this is who we are, this is who we stand for. It doesn't mean you just keep plowing straight ahead. You may have to make adjustment, but that's different. Revising your plans or making changes or doing those kind of things is totally different than ignoring your values. Because, well, it's hard right now. So
Yeah. And I mean, I'm looking across, and I'm sure people are watching the news. Plenty of time on your hands. You may have more time to watch the news than you ever have previously, but you look across the landscape, and I'm seeing companies and individuals just taking a stand and doing things that are phenomenal, focused on the interests of other people. And you see the character of these companies, you see the character of their leaders coming to the forefront. And those kind of companies, you remember, like you said, that they took time during the season to maybe lay aside the things that a company is normally valued on, like their net worth or what their current valuation on Wall Street looks like. And you admire those companies for the stand that they're taking and doing everything that they possibly can to maintain their employee workforce and taking care of all of those things. And and likewise, there's also examples where companies maybe aren't standing tall in the face of adversity, but it's really a personal choice, and it's a choice that each company has to make, and it's revealed during these difficult times. And if we waver really in the face of adversity from our core values, were they really truly core in the first place? Are they really something foundational to who we are as a company, as an individual? So I think it's really important to ask yourself, as you're making difficult decisions through this period of time, stop and assess the decision you're making, filter it through what's core to who you are and who your company is before you make a short-term expedient decision that may have very long-term lasting consequences. And I think that's what you're alluding to.
absolutely. It's kind of interesting. You talk about it, Tim, about you need to really spend some time and assure that these are your core values of the organization, and that to the point that you're prepared to walk them out across the organization. I would, I guess, challenge, leaders to say, if you've created a set of core values and because you felt you needed to, and then you kind of put them away. I mean, core values should be something that get talked about and walked out in your organization daily. It shouldn't be something that you just pull out during a tough time or anything like that. I was doing a little bit of prep for this forum today. I just thought it'd be interesting. I Googled core values, and if you are Googling your core values, you might want to rethink the process. I mean, you can get list of 500 core values to pick from. And sadly, there's probably some organizations out there.
A random core value generator,
Yeah.
You sound pretty good. Nice alliteration.
It just didn't make any sense to me. I mean, it's like, I love Google, and you can Google a lot of things, and it's a great resource, but I'm not sure that's the place to find your core values.
Right. Well, I remember you and I and our other partner, Rob, as we were going through our core values, and fundamentally the basis of our core values were written out in a matter of, minutes. And now that doesn't mean that we thought them up in minutes. They're based on years of who we are and what's important to us. But I remember those were written out. I think you wrote them out on a board initially, Brett, and then we kind of fine-tuned them. And then because, as you said, everything we do, our number one core value is to honor God. So we looked at all of those core values and bounced them off, what we base our faith off, and that's God's word, is Scripture. And we looked at, are these values substantiated and backed up by the truth that we think doesn't change? And, so every one of our core values is tied to that. So in our mind, it's not just you and I and something that we dreamed up. It's really based on foundational principles that have stood the test of time and will continue to stand the test of time. So, we may have to make short-term decisions that challenge our plans, as you said, or even some of the visions that we have for our company. But who we are at our core and what we stand for, those things will not change. And maybe that gets to the next thing we were going to chat about here, Brett, is that many colleagues of ours and companies out there, they're in the midst of this situation. The circumstances are beyond their control. I mean, I think about many companies, core values at the top of their list, if not the top, is our people, our number one asset. And that's true. And many companies stand by that. But unfortunately, many companies today are having to, through no fault of their own, make very difficult decisions to furlough people, to lay people off, to make those very difficult financial decisions. That doesn't mean that they're foregoing their core value. It means that there is a interim change to their plan that they have to adjust, but there are ways that they can stay true to their core value, even if they have to make some really short-term, tough decisions. Wouldn't you say that's true, Brett?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you should feel guilty as a company in this season, which is unprecedented in our lifetime for sure. I actually think it takes greater character to make the really difficult decisions. And I mean, I'm sure there are leaders of small businesses and even larger businesses, but specifically small businesses out there. I mean, it's eating them up. I mean, of what they're having. But, there's times where and we're in one of those right now, where you have to make some really difficult decisions to keep from, losing the entire organization. I mean, you don't do anybody any good if in the process of being, feeling guilty or unwilling to adjust, you basically bankrupt your company, and now nobody has a job. And
Right.
so yeah, it's difficult, but like you said, how you handle it, how you communicate it, how you recognize that, hey, we're going to, the minute we can, I've heard of a few companies, and I'm, again, not here to judge their decision making, that have, said that as they've had to lay off and furlough some people, and you can almost see that they're going, well, we're actually making, we're not going to bring as many back because we're a little more efficient. We're a little this, we're a little that, which is really what they're saying is, hey, we're getting more out of the few people we kept. which maybe is true, and maybe you have gotten a little heavy. But that also, you got to be careful, is that a little bit of trying to, squeeze blood out of the turnip, so to speak, and that's eventually gonna come back to bite you, because you're looking at the bottom line and forgetting, hey, those 10 people you furloughed, they're part of your organization. They're going through a very difficult time as well. So, it's hard, but you're right, Tim. I think, just because you have to lay off or furlough or cut some non-essential spending or a lot of different things, it doesn't mean that you've, if to your point, if one of your core values is your people, it doesn't mean that changed. So.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's important that you understand you may have to adjust how you implement a core value in the face of adversity, but it doesn't change who you are. And one article I read talked about, you may have to have a season of interim values. Your core doesn't change, but you have to adjust. So there's some things you might do as a company if you're having to face some very difficult decisions. And we say it all the time, you got to communicate openly. Transparency is key. It builds trust, and making sure that everybody understands the decisions you're making and why you're making them, and be honest with people. People can absorb some very challenging news if they know you're being honest and transparent with them. And as you communicate those tough decisions, have you considered every option? And as the leader, as you and I are, Brett, are we willing to make sacrifices first? Are we willing to make the most sacrifices? And people respect that. And as long as you have a plan for getting back to, your fundamental way that you implement your core values and you follow through on your commitments to people, then you'll be able to sustain. There's a quote that I read from a Forbes article, and I think it applies here. And it talks about evolving business changes and challenges. And this author of this article in Forbes, I can't recall the individual right now, but it's kind of aligned with what we said. And essentially, it's these kind of changes are unavoidable, certainly during times we're in. But the trick, he said, is to avoid compromising your core values in the process. Remember, interim values come and go, but as long as you maintain the beliefs that are at the heart of your organization, your employees and clients will always know what you stand for. And I think that really captures what we're talking about here. So you don't deviate from core. You may have to take a little bit of a detour to get back to where you need to be. I think that's the point that we're trying to make with that. So
Yeah,
don't make short-term decisions that have really long-term implications in haste without thoroughly vetting them through this lens of your core values. So I guess, with that, Brett, I think it's important for us to maybe leave with some ideas and thoughts and how a company can go about maintaining their core values, or maybe some of the things that we do at Skillwork. Not that we have this thing wired or figured out, but we do believe firmly in our core values and how we live those out. And what are some takeaways that somebody could walk away from today with how to implement what we've talked about?
Yeah, well, I think, a couple things, Tim, on that. As you look to maintain your core values or even maybe, establish core values wherever you are as an organization, we talked about it. I think you make sure, first of all, that they're relevant, that they align with your company. Tim, we say it all the time. We don't hire people for a job. We invite people into our organization to embrace, our vision, and part of that is also to embrace, our values. And so it's not just you and me running around telling everybody, we've hired people who embrace that. So it's got to be relevant, I think, to everybody in the organization. And one of the things you have to recognize early is if you've got somebody that's struggling in that area, we have to help them. And so to that point, then relevant, and then real. They need to be, as we talked earlier. Everybody knows, everybody's seen it. A lot of companies who have great values written out on a wall or on a piece of paper and a plaque, and but you'd be hard pressed to find 10 people in the organization that could tell you what they are. So when they're real, we talk about living it out, walking it out every day. That we, and the way that we interact with one another, the way that we interact with our clients, and in our case, our skill workers, our skilled trades guys that are in the field, that you and I, have calls with our skill workers. We talk about if you ever see us not walking out these values, please let us know.
Right.
Fortunately for us, we're blessed with great people, so we never have anybody, or rarely have anybody, ever call us and tell us, hey, you're not living those out. So
Right.
and then to reinforce, somebody said, well, everybody on the planet pretty much knows what Coca-Cola is, but Coca-Cola spends, and Pepsi for that matter, I don't want to pick on one or the other, but they both spend billions of dollars a year in advertising. Well, why? Everybody already knows, because they're reinforcing that. They don't want you to forget. Well, you got to be the same way with your values. You've got to reinforce that. So it needs to be talked about. It needs to be shared on a regular highlight, regular basis. And then the last one is recognize. Recognize those people in your organization that are doing it right. In big and small ways. Whether that's in just a verbal recognition or an actual award or something, but those would be the four that we would say, make them relevant, make them real, live them out, reinforce them on a regular basis, and then recognize those in the organization that get it right.
That's great. Yeah, 4 R's. I think we know a pastor friend of ours, Brett, that would be proud of that alliteration that we threw in there. That's really
yes,
good.
he would.
So there's 4 points instead of 3. We'd have to shorten one of them up, but I'm sure we could figure it out. But yeah, it's a great takeaway and a great reminder, and I think those things are something maybe you could consider today if you've taken the time to listen to this, and we hope you have. Core values are something that you need to have personally. Those are your convictions. Where do you stand? And that can be your family, that can be you individually, and certainly from a business perspective, what is your company and where do you stand, and what's being revealed during these difficult times. So hopefully today, the conversation we've had has given you some things to think about on both a personal and a professional level. We want to thank you, as always, for joining us here on the Skillwork Forum. For more information on how your company can overcome the skilled labor shortage in America, or if you just want more information about some of the leadership topics we've talked about, we're always happy to chat with you. Please reach out to us at our website, skillwork.com. You can get Brett and I's contact information there if you're interested in that. Have a great day. Until next time, see ya.